Adam stumbled as he was bodily shoved into the cell. Just barely avoiding landing flat on his face, he regained his footing just in time for Cell to stumble directly into him, leading to them both landing in a heap on the solid floor. Upon exiting the hospital, Adam and Cell had found themselves surrounded by Shulvanti military police, who had quickly clad them in irons and whisked them off to the small military prison on the base the DHIAP sat, which Adam now knew was commonly referred to as the Crucible. While being walked into the jail, he and Cell had got many looks, which spanned the usual range of emotions from lust, to anger, and to confusion. Thankfully, the cell they were sat in was cleaner than most human jails, and practically sterile. There was one large bed, a toilet, a small vanity, and a small desk with a chair bolted to the floor. Cell quickly got to her feet, extending an arm to Adam as he rose. "So," she said, as Adam dusted himself off, "what do you think is going to happen to us?" "No clue, honestly," said Adam, looking around the room. "If this were the army, I guess we'd have to wait for a JAG to come down to us, along with CID, to run an investigation, before they came to a decision to press charges. Given that this is the Shulvanti military and we just killed nobles, I'm guessing it's going to be a lot different." "What's a JAG or CID? "Ah, fuck," Adam said intelligently, mentally facepalming at his use of acronyms. JAG is a military lawyer, CID is the investigation branch of the army, or was. My guess is that CID's job will be rolled into the interior for you guys." "Okay, that makes sense. What do we do now?" "Simple. We wait. I don't know if it's going to take a few hours or if they're going to let us stew for a few days. But either way, no use just standing around," he said, sitting down in the chair. "If we're going to be here longer than today, we're going to have to sleep. But what will we do? There's only one bed," said flirtatiously, shooting a grin at Adam as he sat. How she managed to find the fortitude to still be flirtatious at a time like this, he would never understand, but her upbeat energy still made him smile despite their tenuous situation. "I'll take a pillow and rack out on the floor. I reckon we should take watches, make sure no accidents befall us, eh, Cell?" Adam momentarily froze as Cell lifted her fatigue top over her head, giving him a lovely view of her sports bra-clad chest. Cell, what are you doing?" he asked slowly, managing to avert his gaze. "It's hot in here, Adam. I'm not going to coat the bed in sweat. Besides, I've seen you staring. I think," she paused, ripping off her sports bra, "that you need this too." "Cell, I'm sorry," he said, unable to tear his gaze off her soft purple flesh, the glowing blue tattoo that worked its way up her body. "You're right, but I just can't. I know relationships are different in my world versus the rest of the galaxy, but there are some things I just can't get over. But the fact that you're right, I do like you, means that as soon as we make it back to the pod, if we ever do, you're going to sit down with Harry and Slip, okay?" "That's actually more reasonable than I expected," she said, putting back her sports bra with a grin. "What did you expect?" "Based on what I know of you?" She looked up and to the side and thought, biting her tongue softly, as she clearly considered how to answer. "Either an outright refusal, or you throwing caution to the wind. I guess I had a 50-50 shot." "Well, it was very tempting. I'll take first watch. You get some shut-eye." Cell nodded, and laid down in the bed while Adam sat proper in the chair, fidgeting mindlessly on the desk. He had learned how the Imperium felt about the Nightcrow as a species, but had hopes for Ferry and Slip's reactions based on how quickly the training company had warmed to her presence. "Never fuck with Doc, I guess," he thought, casting his mind back to one of the hilarious moments when he was an off-duty PFC, and went to a bar with Alec and Tim, his platoon's medic. The bar, just off base in South Tacoma, straddled the line between dingy dive bar and quiet place for young people to meet, and they had gone in search of a good time. The good time found them, however, when a drunk man threw a wild punch at Tim, who dodged and attempted to talk the man down fruitlessly, prompting Adam and Alec to get involved. Which is also how the three of them caught their first Article 15s from their chain of command. Good fucking times, thought Adam, now content to sit in boredom for as long as it would take to get out of this dark box they'd shoved him in. In the following 6 days, or at least what he could count from the periodic dimming and reactivation of the hallway lights that illuminated under their door, Adam and Cell slept, ate the rations that were shoved through the receptacle in the door, and generally tried to alleviate boredom. If his years of service had taught him anything, it was how to entertain himself during the hurry-up-and-wait moments in his life. A large part of what they did was talk about their families and lives. Cell was quite interested in human history, particularly about World War II and Vietnam. The idea of an entire force of guerrillas in Vietnam creating a tunnel system to outmaneuver the attacking US forces was her favourite focal point, and she seemed to always draw the conversation back to that and the tunnel rats. On the morning of the 7th day, Adam was awoken by Cell tapping his shoulder. "Adam, they're unlocking the cell. We need to stand against the wall." "Ugh," he muttered tiredly, climbing out of bed slowly. "This won't go well, will it?" "No idea," said Cell, placing her hands against the wall before Adam mirrored her. The cell door was quickly opened, and 4 Shervanti women in purple uniforms, with golden filigree dancing up the sleeves, burst into the room. Adam quickly had a bag thrown over his head, along with his arms being wrenched behind his back into what felt like a pair of cuffs. Adam was walked out of his cell, strong arms dragging him bodily along from either side for several minutes before he heard a door open. The cuffs were removed, he was thrust into a chair, and had his arms rested on the table, where they were clamped into another pair of cuffs attached to the table. The bag was jerked off his head, and he took a look around the purple room. It was vaguely reminiscent of interrogation rooms he had seen back on Earth. The purple alloy gave it an odd feeling, when combined with the glowing panel on the ceiling that acted as a fluorescent light. There was also a completely black wall, and he was unsure of its purpose. "Couldn't you at least wash the bag between abductions?" he asked the women, who were leaving the room, deciding to fuck with them. "It's always the cute ones," sighed the oldest of the group as she turned to look at Adam. "Agent Dixaler will be with you shortly. You just sit and enjoy yourself, okay, cutie?" "Ooh, an agent. Makes it sound like I'm special." "Well, it's not often that a noble gets killed, and it's not an open and shut case one way or the other," the woman said, as she closed the door behind her. Adam sat in the room, being allowed to stew on that last remark. He had expected some trouble to come from his fight with the nobles, but in his eyes they were traitors to the Imperium. He had just done as any good soldier would have done, and removed hostiles from within his unit. To him it was open and shut, and he was beginning to mildly panic at the insinuation that he was not, in fact, going to have an easy time of this. His knee began to shake against his will, the nervous tick only cut short by the door opening in front of him, with an older Shervanti woman walking into the room and sitting down in the chair across from him. She wore the same purple uniform as the others who had brought him here, but carried an air of authority with her. She had a wide jaw, large cheekbones, and eyes that threatened to drag out his deepest secrets. "Good afternoon, recruit," she said, pulling an omnipad out and placing it on the desk between them. "I'm Agent Dixaler of House Warutteri. This interview will be recorded for later use." "Nice to meet you, Dix. I'm Adam," he said, smiling at the woman. "I would shake your hand, maybe a fist bump, but..." He raised his hands, indicating the purple cuffs attached to the table with a short chain. No, I'm afraid I can't let you out of those," she said, a small grin teasing the corner of her mouth. "My girls might be fooled by your pretty face, but I've seen your helmet footage. You're not the kind of male they're used to." "I suppose not." "Well, down to brass plates, I want your side of the story." "I would have thought my helmet cam footage would have provided all the story you wanted," he replied, somewhat confused at what she wanted him to say. "In terms of pure data, yes. I have an entire company's worth of evidence both in your favour and against," she said, leaning back in her chair. "But what I want to know is why. Because what I see in your life is 4 years of honourable service before our arrival. 4 years of blank space, heavily redacted to the point of being illegible, and then suddenly you're being recruited by a commando pod." "Sounds like you got everything nailed down then." "Yes and no. Frankly, I would have already cleared you and Sergeant Salier, if it weren't for this." She slid a finger across the omnipad, and the black wall to the left of them lit up, footage from himself, Cell, and the 2 nobles playing in a synchronized fashion. He winced as he watched himself put around through the noble's skull, before the screen went black. "Ah, that," he said, trailing off. "Yes, that. Hell, even if the 2 of you had just let her bleed out, I could have explained everything away. But instead, this little portion of the footage got sent to the families anonymously, and they want your head on a spike." She exhaled with an audible sigh before continuing. "Frankly, my position as a noble and senior agent of the Interior allows me to tell them to suck clam in just about any situation, except for this." "And what do you want from me, then?" he asked. "I want your side, as I said before. I want to know your motivation for that final act. Was it revenge? Was it a battlefield execution on behalf of Her Majesty of a traitor? Was it fear of reprisal?" She trailed off, eyebrows raised, clearly expecting a response. "I'd love to say it was just executing a traitor, but as evidenced by what I said before I shot her, I can't really play that card, can I?" "No, unfortunately not." She took a deep breath, before tapping the omnipad once. "Off the record, Adam?" "Off the record, ma'am. My husband was a Marine. He's told me about some of the things women did to him. and I've seen the reports and footage from a few weeks ago. The truth is, I think you did the right thing, but nobles are nobles after all. The Imperium would fall apart if civilians could just execute one every time they did something scandalous. If you tell me the truth, depending on what it is, I'll leverage the power of my house and station to ensure your safety. Or bury you if it turns out you weren't acting in good faith. I swear this by my title as a noble, she said, placing her index and middle finger against her collar in a gesture he didn't understand. She tapped the omnipad again, resuming the recording. So tell me why you executed another recruit, Adam. In truth, a combination of duty and fear of reprisal, Adam sighed, leaning forward. I believe that she would be able to leverage her family's power to get her off if she survived. She'd already done it once before. What good is removing a traitor if she's going to be allowed to return to running her piece of the Imperium, or God forbid, military service, let alone the rest of me in a cell, of her coming after us? That is believable, but can you explain to me why... She was cut off by the door slamming open behind her. A tall young woman strode into the room, holding a pad and wearing what looked like a silk version of a Roman legionary's outfit, with gold inlay and trim lining the edges of the embossed armor pieces. I'm sorry, who the fuck are you? The agent got out, before she was cut off by a high and piercing voice. Princess Arduina, 7th daughter of the Empress, has issued imperial pardons to Adam McGuinness and Saleil Monfrez. You are expected to release them into my custody immediately to undergo the Deep Minders test and return to Pod 7, who have been called into emergency service early, the woman said, passing the tablet to Agent Dixela. You can't just come and interrupt an active investigation. I don't care who you are, she said indignantly, clearly incensed by the interruption of her interrogation. You would dare stand against not only the wishes of a princess, but the Empress, as well as the 3rd daughter of Princess Arduina, who came herself to deliver this official missive? The newcomer said, gesturing to herself. No, I wouldn't dare to question the royal family, Princess, she stammered, snapping to attention and delivering a salute. The woman nodded, clearly satisfied, and gestured for Adam to follow her. Inspecting her, he got the vague sense that he knew her, but couldn't place from where. They walked in silence through the hallways until they arrived at a doorway in a hall. It slid open, revealing Sel sitting in the chair inside. Her eyes widened as she jumped out of the chair to hug Adam. Adam, she called, gliding with his chest at a full sprint. They wouldn't tell me where they took you. It's okay, Sel, he said, putting a hand on the back of her head, which now rested upon his shoulder. They just took me to an interrogation room and asked some questions. She pulled back and looked over his shoulder at the woman behind him. Who are you? She asked their savior. I am the daughter of Princess Arduina, Yadrena Tasu. I have come with an imperial pardon for any crimes you two may have committed in the past month. What's the catch? Sel asked. For you, none. For your benefactor, much. With that, she turned again, beckoning the juror to follow her. They travelled out of the prison, the guards they passed snapping to attention and saluting. The trio loaded into what looked like an alien equivalent of a Hummer stretch limousine, all silently finding seats in the back. Once comfortably seated, the princess tapped against the glass twice, and Adam felt the vehicle pull out. Okay, it's been bugging me. Do I know you from somewhere? Adam asked, after a few minutes of silence. The woman smiled knowingly in response, tilting her head to the side. No, I'm afraid we probably run in different circles. Maybe from a press release on the imperial family, she replied, putting her hand over the lower portion of her face and winking quickly at Adam. With half her face covered by a hand, it finally hit Adam where he knew the woman from. The ponytail, lithe and wiry muscles, along with a small tattoo on her forearm, finally gave her away. Classy, the team's resident recluse, had come to their rescue.